Okay, I am back, and we are now going to look at some problems that involve using algebra to solve them. Now, the thing about using algebra to solve a system of equations is that it's a lot more accurate, and once you kind of get in the swing of it and you figure out how to do it, it's a lot quicker. It really is. It's much faster, unless you're like a total wizard at graphing. Um, but the thing is, if you don't have like a program like the one that's on ALEKS or Desmos or something like that to graph, you can have a lot of inconsistencies when you're drawing any kind of graph, even if they're both linear equations, which are easier to graph than quadratics. So the algebraic version of solving it is always better. It's always preferred, and it's what we should spend most of our time working on. So even though there's three problems of each, in the future when you see problems like this, definitely go to the algebra. All right, so I'll quit yapping about y and we'll get started here on this. So I've got two equations here, all right? I've got y equals x squared minus 8x plus 2. That's my quadratic, all right? So this is my quad, and then this one is my linear. And the reason this one's quadratic is because I have this x squared term right here. That 2, you look for that exponent. All right, so what we're going to do now is, and ALEKS is kind of nice to us with these because it always does our first step, which is solve both for y. All right, solve both of your equations for y, and this did this already. And then the next step is just basically set them equal to each other, right? Set them equal to each other. Basically, when you do that, what you're doing is you're substituting in for y in one of the equations, which is pretty much setting them equal to each other. So we'll take this one, we'll think about it this way, and we're gonna just put it in this equation right here for y. Okay, so let's do that. So that's gonna give us a new equation. Well, it's an equivalent equation, but it looks new. That says negative 2x plus 18 equals x squared minus 8x plus 2. And then our third step, all right, that we're going to do now is let's just get everything over to one side, and let's set one side of the equation equal to 0, because that's what happens when you move everything to one side. So we'll say set one side of the equation to 0. Okay, so let's do that. Let's move everything over to the x squared side. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to move everything over to the right side. So I just look at what I got to do here. So I'm going to add 2x, and I'm going to line it up with where I want to add it to. And then I'm going to subtract 18. So I'm putting two steps into one here, but we're at a point where I think we can do that and we kind of understand. So that gets all this junk to cancel out right here, and you get 0. And then bring this down, just add everything. So you got x squared, you get negative 6x, and then you get negative 16. All right. Now, I think a majority of the ALEKS examples are pretty nice to you, and you don't have to use the quadratic equation to solve any of these. So I would say always try to factor first, okay? So what we want to do is we want to find the zeros of this. And remember, if we get 2 of them, that means that the graph crosses at 2 points. If we get 1, that means it's a double root, but it's the same thing. So it's just they kind of just touch each other in one spot. And then if you get none, it means they never meet. Okay, so let's check this out, and let's see what we get. So let's try to factor this thing. So we got 0 equals, we're going to make our parentheses. I'm going to put an x in both of these, and I can do that because I know that this is 1. So when that's 1, that's fine. So look at my factors of negative 16. So my factors of negative 16 are negative 1, 16, 1, negative 16. And if you don't need to do this, then just fast forward. Okay, negative 2, 8, 2, negative 8, and then we have negative 4, 4, and 4, negative 4, which are basically the same thing. Okay, so those are my factors of negative 16, and I want to add these up and find the total, the sum that will get me to negative 6. So here these will get you to plus and minus 15, right? This gets you 15, that gives you negative 15. That's great. Negative 2 plus 8 gives me positive 6, which is great because that means the opposite one is going to give me negative 6. So I'm going to use these factors right here. So I got positive 2 and negative 8. So that means I have positive 2 and negative 8. So those are my factors. So now I'm going to do what we always do, which is set each of those equal to 0 for my two cases so I can figure out what my x's are. All right, so this one, if I subtract 2 from both sides, you get x is negative 2, so that's one of my cases. This one, you add 8 to both sides. And I know I'm going kind of quickly through this, but this isn't a video on how to find your roots. That we did that already like about 3 lessons ago, so hopefully you're secure on that. And if you're not, you can go look at my videos for that in that lesson, all right, which you should be able to find in Google Classroom. So we got x is equal to 8. So my two roots are negative 2 and positive 8. So we're going to start with this negative 2, and all you got to do is we want to finding the roots is great, but I want to find the points. I want to find out where these meet. So I got to find my y coordinate so that, you know, you have an ordered pair. You have an x and a y. So let's put negative 2 into that linear equation. It's always easier to substitute into the linear equation than the quadratic. It's just less multiplying and adding and all that. And like I always say, work smarter, not harder. All right, so we have y is equal to, so we've got negative 2 times, put in my x is negative 2, plus 18. And that is, besides being a glitchy mess, is going to give me negative times negative is positive 4. And so we're going to have 4 plus 18, which is 22. So my first answer is going to be the point negative 2, 22. Okay, and then for this one right here, if I put 8 in that equation, we get y is equal to negative 2 times 8 plus 18. And that's going to give me a little nicer answer because this is negative 16 plus positive 18, so we get 2. So we're going to get the point 8, 2. So that means that this equation, these two equations are going to meet at 2 points. And the points they meet at, they're going to meet in the second quadrant at the point negative 2, 22, which is kind of, you know, up there. And then they're going to meet in the first quadrant at the point 8, 2. All right. So let's do one more. All right, let's scroll-o-matic. Let's come on down. And again, same deal, right? Let's make sure they're both set equal to y, and ALEKS, like we said, is kind and does that for us. So this one is. So now step 2, let's set them equal to each other. In other words, substitute in for y for one of them, so it doesn't matter how you do it. I like keeping the top one kind of the same and substituting the second one into the first one. I don't know why, but I do. All right. So I've got my x squared plus x minus 6 right here. We substitute this one in for y, so we get negative x plus 18. So now let's get everything over to the quadratic side. I think that's, like I said, I think that's just easier because you're moving 2 things as opposed to 3. So add x, subtract 18, and we got to do the same thing on the other side because we have a balanced equation. So we add x and we subtract 18. So that zeroes out this whole side right here, which is what we want. And then this gives us x squared plus 2x. And then remember, they're both negative. You just add them up and keep the sign. So minus 24. So I'm gonna think this through without writing all my factors down. Think about what your factors of 24 are. So, or negative 24, my bad. So that means one's negative, one's positive. So I would have negative 1 and 24 or 1 and negative 24, which are going to give you either positive or negative 23. So it's not going to be that one. You get 2 and 12. All right, so positive and negative 10, right? Because one would be positive, one would be negative. So that we're getting closer, but we're not there. 8 and 3, so if we did positive 8, negative 3, that gives me 5. And the other case would give me negative 5. So the next set is our money ticket. That's 6 and 4, right? Because if I have positive 6 and negative 4, that gets me to negative 24 if you multiply them, and then when you add them, that gets me to positive 2. So we're going to use positive 6 and negative 4 for my factors. All right, those are my factors. All right, so let's factor a source. So 6x plus 6, and then x minus 4. And then we set up both of our equations, and we're going to solve them for x. And then when we do that, we're going to right away put those in this bottom equation and figure out what our y is. So let's do that individually for each one. So for my first x point, I'm going to get x is equal to negative 6. Remember, when you move something over to the other side, basically it just changes the sign. All right, so we're moving a little quicker here. We're using a little more trickery, but this is all stuff, you know, at this point you guys should be pretty familiar with. Okay, so if x is negative 6, I'm going to put that into my y equation. I'm going to use this equation right here to substitute in. So it gives me negative, because it's negative x, and x is negative 6. So I have a double negative here. So these are going to cancel out. Negative, negative, right? And that becomes 6 plus 18, which is 24. So my first point where these two things meet is negative 6 and 24. All right, and now let's do this right here. So we got x minus 4. Add it, both sides. I'll do this one drawn out just because I started it. So x equals 4. So let's put it in the equation. So we have y equals negative, plug in my 4, plus 18. Well, that becomes negative 4 plus 18, which is 14. All right. So we have the point. Here's my x, 4, and then here's my y right here, 14. So here's my 2 points. So negative 6, 24, and point 4, negative 14. That's where these two equations meet and where the solution is. So again, unfortunately, most of the examples that ALEKS gives are two roots, or two solutions, I should say. So they meet in two places. But occasionally you might run into one where they don't meet, where you don't get a solution. Okay, and I actually talk about that in one of the other videos. But as far as the ALEKS examples go, they're going to all probably wind up giving you two solutions. All right, and you know you're going to have two solutions when you get two roots when you factor it. So there you go. Good luck with these. I hope these videos, if you needed to watch these, are helpful to you. So yeah, have a great time doing these problems.